What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Friday edition of Mile High Hockey. Drew Spivak, Will Peterson back with you as normal. Want to give a shout out to Richie Carney and Anilo Piro for filling in for us on Tuesday. But we are back, and we are back to talk about some Avalanche history that was made last night, Drew. The Avs become only the fourth team in NHL history to have one regulation loss or fewer in their first 20 games of the season. Let me give you this list real quick. They joined Montreal in 1927-28, and we're talking almost 100 years ago. Philadelphia 79-80, and then one of those dominant Blackhawk teams 2012-2013 as the only four teams to lose one regulation game or fewer in their first 20. They do it thanks to a dominant 6-3 win over the New York Rangers. Cale Makar gets a couple goals. Nathan MacKinnon a couple goals. Brock Nelson continues to heat up. And Scott Wedgwood actually got an assist. Funny thing, his first point ever in the NHL. I know I just threw a lot of information at you there, but let's start with the history the Avs made through 20 games. Truly remarkable to only lose one time in 60 minutes after 20 contests.
No, it is. And it's we're at a point, Will, honestly, where I'm starting to run out of like ways to talk about this team that's like new and refreshing, because just every night it's just like the same thing over and over again. They just go out there and they control a hockey game and just win it no matter what. And it doesn't matter the style that they want to do it in. You want to play kind of a physical style? All right, we'll do that. You want to play a high-paced, up back and forth style? All right, we'll do that, and we'll still win. But to be in the class of those other three teams that you mentioned, it's incredible. And you go back and you look at what those teams did. I mean, the 2027 Montreal team, they lost in the semifinals at that time to the Montreal Maroons.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Giving us a history lesson.
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
Exactly. The 79-80 Flyers lost in the Stanley Cup final after having, I think, the longest winning streak in the history of the NHL during that season. You mentioned that Blackhawks team. That team went on to win the Stanley Cup in the strike-shortened season. So to be in that kind of company, it's incredible. Think about it. 4 teams have done this in the entire history of the National Hockey League. Like, it really, truly is incredible what this team is accomplishing so far in 20 games this year.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable. I mean, they're now 14-1-5. They have 33 points, by far the most in the NHL. No one else is even at 30. Carolina Hurricanes are at 28. And I think when you look at last night in particular, Drew, I didn't even think the Avalanche played particularly great hockey through 2 periods. They were actually down 1-0. Nathan MacKinnon gets a tally very late in the first period, and then they're down 2-1, and Cale Makar has a slick wraparound to tie things up 2-2 fairly late in the second period. And then the third period, they just do what they do. They come at you in waves, and they end up outscoring the Rangers 4-1. A couple empty netters, I get it. But obviously, even when they're not playing their best hockey, they're winning. And Jared Bednar talked about after the game, that's just an akin leadership is what he kind of put that on. And honestly, you know, I think it was something we sort of scratched the surface on the last couple of years, but now I think we're ultimately seeing it of Gabriel Landeskog. Even though the production may not be there, I don't think that Nathan MacKinnon is the best leader. I think he's the best player. I don't know if Cale Makar's the best leader. I think he's one of the 2-3 best players on earth. But having Landy back in the lineup, I think, is sort of how we explain this historic 20-game start. What do you think?
No, I think you're right. And I think not only having him back in the lineup, but now we're seeing his game kind of come up to his leadership skill. Like, since he's gone down to that third line, every game he's improved. He's taken another step. And I think last night was his best game, even though, like you said, I agree. I didn't think the Avs as a whole played a great game last night. I thought Gabe Landeskog had a pretty darn good hockey game last night. And to have your captain start to turn into one of your better players night in and night out, it says something. But I think what would frighten me if I'm another team in the league right now is that I don't think that this team has played a complete hockey game yet this season. We're 20 games into this. They've got 14 wins, 1 loss in regulation, and they haven't even played a complete hockey game.
What about 9-1 over Edmonton? 9-1 over the Oilers?
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that one.
Okay.
All right. But that, like I said, at the time, I think that was more about Edmonton than it was about the Avalanche.
True.
But that would frighten the daylights out of me if I'm another hockey team, because there's still another 2, 3, 4 years to go for this Avalanche team to get clicking on all cylinders. And now we're starting to see Brock Nelson turn it on and get it going. And you lose Gavin Brindley. That stinks. Who knows how long he's going to be out. But, like, when I watch this team, there's never a moment when I'm watching where I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be a tough one tonight. They may not pull this one out. Every time I'm like, all right, well, they're not playing well. They'll find a way to win because that's just what they do. And it doesn't matter. Like last night, you saw the stars step up. McCarr, McKinnon, Natchez with a couple of points. The night before, it's like, all right, here's your depth guys night. It doesn't matter. They have so many different ways they can beat you. I don't know how any team can come in and look at this team and go, yeah, we're gonna have to play our best game to beat this team on a night in, night out basis. And even if we play our best game, which the Rangers played a really good game last night, it still may not matter. That's how good this Avalanche team is.
Yeah, and it kind of gets to the point where it's like, is anyone going to be able to beat these guys 4 times in 7 games? I mean, I wrote it in my story at denversports.com. I understand it's cup or bust, but sometimes in life you also have to enjoy the journey. And I found myself when I was writing that story after watching that whole Avs game feeling like I'm pretty satisfied right now. Like this is fun. This is fun. And I do think, everyone's going to say, well, what does it matter in November? Only thing that matters is April, May, and June. I was guilty of that at times too. But Drew, I even myself feel like I have to take a step back and soak in the moment of these 82 regular season games because this is history. This is fun. There's 18,000 people at Ball Arena having a good time. And I think that as Avalanche fans, we can cup or bust, parade or bust, whatever. Guys, we'll talk about cups. We'll talk about parades, but can we at least get to spring break before we start doing that? Like, isn't it fun to be an Avs fan right now, enjoying really good hockey on a night in and night out basis?
No, I think that's a great point because we kind of do this with the Nuggets. Like over the last couple of years, watching Jokic night in and night out, it feels like you're going to see something historic every single night the Nuggets take the court. It's like that with this Avalanche team now. And I genuinely wake up in the mornings, the day the Avalanche play, I'm like, man, I can't wait till 7:00 when they drop the puck because I'm looking forward to seeing what this team is going to do on that particular night. And you look at the way that Nathan McKinnon is playing this year. Look at the way that Cale Makar is playing this year. The Avalanche have the 2 best players in the NHL right now. Not just one. You have the 2 best players in the NHL right now. We have to appreciate what we're seeing over the course of this 82-game season. Yeah, we talk all the time about the cup and all that stuff, but you have to live in the moment and truly appreciate what this team is doing. This is historical, and the run that we're seeing for all the teams in Denver, this whole thing is historical. It's fun to be in this position and in this chair and in this job and get to just watch this night in and night out, knowing, you know what? We're probably never going to see something like this again. So I think you really do have to do, if you're an Avalanche fan, just sit back, enjoy the ride. Who knows how this thing's going to end once we get to April, May, June. Hopefully it's late June with a parade. But let's just enjoy this every single night because what we're watching is historic and it's so much fun.
Yeah, no, it really is. And you have to soak it in. I like what you said there. Like, we're never going to see this again because let's be honest, when this era ends, they're going to be really bad. When the Jokic era ends, the Nuggets are going to be really bad. So soak it all in for now. I'm not saying it's ending tomorrow. We have 4, 5, 6, 7 more years of this, but for now, you got to soak it all in. All right, what was more fun last night, Drew? The Wedgwood assist or the Brock Nelson snipe on the Wedgwood assist? Because both of them were freaking awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think, first off, it was surprising that Scott Wedgwood had never had an assist. I know he's a backup goaltender, and goalies don't typically get a lot of assists, but to find out that was his first NHL assist, that was pretty cool. But for me, Brock Nelson with the snipe, because like we've said, Brock is starting to turn it on. I think it's four points now in the last 5 games, 3 goals in 3 straight games. We're starting to see the Brock Nelson that we saw on Long Island start to become that guy for the Avalanche because that dude has got a shot. And we haven't seen it really yet in an Avalanche uniform. Over the last couple nights, we're starting to see it. And if Brock Nelson starts turning it on, dude.
Where are the holes? Where are the holes on the hockey team?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only thing is hey, can you do that when they're on the power play? That 30 seconds that power play 2 gets, every time they hit the ice. It's just watching Brock Nelson get this thing figured out. He's starting to look more confident. He's starting to look like the player that they traded for when they made the move. It completely answers the question to whether or not the Avalanche are still looking for a 2C. I think that question's been answered. I think it's fun to watch Brock kind of start to turn it on now because we're seeing the player that we got in the trade last year that we hoped we were going to see once we got him in March, but now we're starting to see that same guy. And that guy is a guy that's a very good player. Remember, this Brock Nelson played on the 4 Nations U.S. team last year. Like, this guy is internationally a very good hockey player. If we get that player, look out, man.
Yeah, and I think Chris McFarland is probably feeling vindicated too of like, hey, I paid this guy even though he's a little bit older. And we heard the stories of he kind of had to be talked into staying in Colorado and it was the right fit for him and all that. So it wasn't just McFarland, deciding whether or not to give him the contract. It was Nelson deciding whether or not to stay in Denver. And I think it was just a ultimate perfect fit for both sides that we didn't really see through the first 10 games. And I think people were getting a little bit frustrated. But then the last 10 games, I think we are starting to see it from Brock Nelson. And to answer the question I asked you as well, I think it was the Nelson snipe, because those are the kind of shots that you only see from elite players in the NHL, where they are a significant distance from the goal and they find the perfect spot where the goaltender, by the way, Igor Shesterkin, one of the best in the league, at least, over the last few years, that he had no chance on. And to me as an Avs fan, I'll take gritty, dirty goals all day long. Those are fun too. They all count the same. But there's just something about, it brings me back to Joe Sakic beating Martin Brodeur in Game 7 of the 0-1 Stanley Cup Final. Just a perfectly placed wrist shot that the goalie has no chance.
Yeah, think about who he's doing this with too, because it's Val Nichushkin's been out for the last couple games. He's been doing this basically with Ross Colton, who's a third liner. He's been doing this with Gavin Brindley, who predominantly had been a fourth liner up until the injury. And now we're starting to see him produce with these guys on his line. It's just, man, it validates, I think, everything that Chris McFarland has done. Really, I would go back to the Mikko trade. I know some people don't want to go back there, but I feel like every move that Chris McFarland has made since that trade, he's nailed on. I mean, look at what he did with Gavin Brindley.
Just a salary dump.
Just a salary dump. And you end up getting a guy like Gavin Brindley, who could start to work his way into the Calder Trophy conversation. Maybe he's going to need to do a lot with the way Matthew Shaver's playing in New York. But it's just it's cool to see that they're just everything he's doing, just pulling the right strings. Every move he's made his hit so far. It's just, where are the holes on this team? There aren't any holes. And we've gone into the last couple of years like, oh man, trade deadline, they're going to have to make something big happen in order to make a run towards the cup. That's not the case this year. They're loaded. They're set, as long as, and this is the one thing I'll ask you, do you start to kind of worry about the injury bug a little bit? Because Val's out. Now Gavin Brindley, we don't know how long he's going to be out. Kiwi Ronta's still out. Logan O'Connor's having a little bit of a setback type thing. Are you starting to worry at all a little bit about maybe some of the injuries kind of coming to a head for this team right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess worry is always on the table, but to me, the biggest thing is you got to avoid the season long ones, right? One, because right now, guys in and out of the lineup, we saw Sam Girard miss a big chunk of time as well. It's fine, but it's just ultimately is an element of luck, and it's going to come down to when the playoffs do roll around. Obviously, all your big dogs have to be healthy, but then you're only missing one or two pieces. So, even with a guy like Nichushkin, do I want him to play? Of course I want him to play, but he was skating this morning at Family Sports. So it's nothing serious. He may miss a handful of games. It is what it is. But no, to answer your question, I'm not, but it always is the great equalizer, particularly in a sport like hockey, a sport like football. You just got to dodge the big bullet, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed for that.
When I'll worry about it is when we get to February with the Olympics.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be playing high-level competition in an international format, and you're going to be playing, 7 games, hopefully, for the U.S.-Canada teams over the course of about 2 weeks. And then you're going to come back after that break, and you're going to have a condensed schedule. Because at that point, you're not going to be seeing where the Avs play on a Sunday, and then they don't play again until Thursday like they did this week. You're going to be playing basically every other night from the time you get back to late February until mid-April. So that's when I'm going to really start to get concerned. As long as the Avalanche can avoid the big injury with a McKinnon, Makar, somebody like that, I think they're probably going to end up being fine with it. It's just, for me, it's something to monitor, because you worry when you have to start bringing guys up from the Eagles, and then that depth that we've seen be so good so far this year starts to get a little bit worrisome at that point. I'm not there yet. Hopefully we don't have to worry about it, but it's something I'm kind of keeping my eye on a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely worth keeping an eye on for sure. But history last night at Ball Arena, the Avalanche, the 4th team in NHL history to only lose 1 regulation game through their first 20. It was so good to be back with Drew today. We will be back on Tuesday for another edition of Mile High Hockey.